talk about something besides outside working in the garden and gun review or something like that. Gardening is great. Small scale farming is great. Small scale farming I see is a big industry. It's already big. I see it getting bigger and bigger. But you got a garden, you love to garden, and it's one of the most therapeutic things you can do. I honestly believe some of the people on therapy would start gardening, they wouldn't have to be on therapy. It's my opinion. I got no facts for that, but I think it's true. And I think most of you believe it's true too, that garden. You grow all that great stuff. Now what? Here, you grow great Roma tomatoes. I mean, you got a lot of tomatoes. What are you going to do with all those tomatoes? You know, you grow the tomatoes. I'm just using that for an example. You get a lot for 2 to 4 months for most people, unless you got a greenhouse. You get a lot, then you're done. What are you going to do? You know, like zucchini. You get a lot of zucchini during the summer months, but then you get nothing. You have to some way preserve your harvest. Okay? You have to keep the food you grow during the spring, summer, and fall for the rest of the season. Me and my wife both love asparagus. Asparagus is a pretty short window. It's about a month, if you're lucky. We grow a lot of asparagus. We get a lot. Matter of fact, every year we both get tired of picking it or cutting it every day. You know, it's kind of like, oh, we got to go cut the asparagus. But as I'm doing it, I'm realizing, well, I'm going to preserve this. The more I do now, the more I'll have the rest of the year. So you need a little motivation to yourself, and that's basically mine. And I like preserving food. I think it's really, really fun. So I'm just going to talk about different ways that you guys might not always think about. We'll go over some of the main things you can do and stuff like that. First of all, the big one everybody talks about, and everybody is so scared of this. They're just scared. My family canned a lot. My mom canned a little when I was really little, but she really didn't can when I was older because she was working and didn't have time. So she didn't. So we're going to talk about canning real quick here. But my grandma's did. You know, my grandma Schlomer, every time we were on the farm, you know, she'd send me downstairs to grab a can of something a lot of times. And my grandma Graves, she canned a little bit, but she was older and didn't have much of a garden when I was there, so she didn't can very much when I was around. But so I didn't really learn from my family. I learned from canning from YouTube. You know, I learned from canning from reading books and stuff like that. If you never canned before, and if you want me to film a couple videos, let me know next time I can. I can always throw the camera up and show you what I do. But one thing you have to do if you start canning is go get this book here. You know, it's the Ball Blue Book of Canning. Get this book, okay? You can get this book at the store for $5 to $9. You can get it used at like half price books or those used book places for $2 to $4. This new says on the back $8. This is it. You can go online and get all the information, but it's nice having it in a book form next to you because there's 2 different ways of canning. There's pressure canning and there's canning you do in a bath, water bath. Basically, water bath, you're submerging the whole can in the water and you're doing it, and that's it. Pressure canning, you don't have to have it submerged, but you need a pressure canner, so there is a difference. And if you look at one of my earlier videos, and I'll try to link to it if I remember when I'm doing this, that I go over the different types of pressure canners there are. Because you can get a couple pressure canners, you could get like one that'll do all your needs around the house. You could go. Most of the time people are going to want 2. One for more everyday use, for cooking and stuff like that, then a bigger one for the bigger jars. So, but it has to do with what's in there. All meats, you have to pressure. No ifs, ands, or buts. Basically, if it's high acidic, you really don't have to pressure because of the bacteria. You can't live in there. But this book will tell you what needs to be done and for what length of time, because different foods have different time you should pressure can to be safe. And then they keep for a while. Now, canned foods will keep for years. But after a year or two, depending on what it is, they will start to lose their nutrient value. So you do want to use your canned goods. But do you have to use in that magical 365 days everybody talks about? No. You don't have to do that. But we're going to talk about some canning and some of the stuff I've done that some people always don't think about. Like we're talking about the Roma tomatoes. Here we go, canned tomatoes. And canned tomatoes are really easy to do, okay? They're right here. All you have to do is you take the tomato, and all this information is in that book. You can get online too. It's in that book, so don't worry about that. Is take this, just take it off the stem and put it in boiling water. You can do more at once. It's about a minute. I forgot what the exact time is. Take it out, put it in an ice bath. This is a container full of ice water, and what you're doing is you're shocking the temperature down so it stops the cooking. And what that does is the skin just peels right off. You just falls right off. Then you take those, just put them in your can. And you pick a whole bunch, just start putting them in until this thing is jammed full. And then you put some water in it, and some people put different seasonings in, I don't. And then you just follow the canning instructions and can it, and you have fresh tomatoes you can go get out of your pantry anytime you want. Now, I don't keep all my canned goods in the pantry. That's another thing. I don't have room. When you buy the jars, they come in boxes, and you can buy aftermarket boxes too. After I put them back in the can, and I put some in our closet, underneath our bed, anywhere I can stash some of the stuff. So you don't have to put it all in the pantry per se. As long as you know where it's at and you don't forget about it, that's the important thing. So you want to make some quick spaghetti sauce, tomato sauce, or anything like that, and you need fresh tomatoes, you got your fresh tomatoes. And once you've grown your tomatoes, you know this too if you've grown tomatoes, there's no taste difference between tomatoes you grow and what you buy. Even the on-vine stuff you buy, there's not even a comparison in taste. So another thing you can do is that people don't can all the time is, I'll get a little closer look so you can see it here. I'll hold it still so it can focus. That is candied jalapenos. That is one of the easiest things to make. And candied jalapenos, you just slice them up. Excuse me. You slice them up. You get the marinade ready. You cook them in the marinade for like 3-4 minutes. You put them in the jars. You pour the marinade on top. And you can them. And what it is they are spicy. They're sweet. They're salty. They're tangy. Because there's vinegar in it. It has all your taste buds just going at once. These are awesome. Sometimes these are called Cowboy Candies also. And with these, what I do with these is I put them on top of anything I can think about. Burgers, hot dogs, anything like that. What you can also do is take about half this jar with half the liquid, put it in a food processor, and put 2 bricks of cream cheese and just blend it. And you got yourself a great dip for crackers. Very good. That is one of the closest things you can get to crack without actually making crack. Because when you have that at a party, people are like, oh, this is spicy, but I gotta have more. And they just keep going back. So that's good. Now, with this, what I can say is make sure you label everything you make. Doesn't matter. Label, even if you know what it is, you know the person, label what you make and the date you canned it. Always. Now, this also has a white lid you can see here. See that? That is a Tatler reusable lids. Normal lids, you can see here, you do not use. You can reuse the rings, but not the lids. Tatlers, you can reuse because they have a rubber gasket. I'm not a huge fan of those. And I follow the instructions precisely, and I've used them a few times. I get a large failure rate for canning. Basically, when you're done canning, after it's out, and you put it on your counter, sometimes it's immediate, sometimes it's an hour later, you'll start hearing popping sound. That is the jar sucking down in, and you hear a clicking noise. And that's how you know it's sealed. If you press down in a canned jar, and it doesn't press down, it's still good. If you press down and you hear a click, 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 don't eat it. Don't eat that jar. If you can something and it's a few hours later and you still don't have it, throw it in the fridge and use it, okay? But Tattlers, there's two things. Tattlers, it's hard to click to test, and they have and I had a huge failure rate for those. And some of them broke after a day, and so they've been out too long, so it was no good. I'm not a big fan of the Tattlers. Some people use them and have awesome success, and I wish I did. I just don't. And you can get these dirt cheap. Matter of fact, coming up here at Walmart, usually it's around Halloween to Thanksgiving time. Every time you're in a Walmart or Target, you know, pick your store here. Walk back to the canning section. They will start to get rid of these, because right now you go there, it's double the section because it's canning season. So it's a huge section. Well, they don't have the space for that year round. They need room for the winter stuff. So a lot of times they're marked down. So that's when I buy all my canning stuff, is after canning season, because you can get great prices for jars, everything. And you can reuse the jars and you can reuse the lid. Now, after you have the jar, check the top of the jar, make sure it's not cracked. Don't use it if it's chipped or cracked at the top at all. That does not mean you have to get rid of the jar. We have a couple that are just nicked up on the top that we can't use for canning. It would not get a good seal. We can't, but it's still a good jar. It's not cracked in any way. It's just chipped just a little bit at the ring. So what we do with them is we just get a lid, you know, and then get a ring, and we store stuff like our beans, you know, instead of keeping them in the bags you buy, you know, split peas, stuff like that. We keep in those jars. You can see what they are easily. You know what it is. You're good to go. So you don't necessarily have to throw them away. Now, besides this Cowboy Candy, if you make this, and if you guys really want, let me know, and I will get the recipe out to you guys. Let me know. Send me a message on YouTube, and I will reply back, and I'll copy and paste the recipe for you. But if you search for Cowboy Candy in Google or candied jalapenos, you'll get the recipe. They're all almost identical. When you're done, you're going to have extra marinade that was in the jar. Do not throw this away. You're going to have extra, do not, because this is what the liquid that was cooking in here when they cooked for a few minutes, and you fill the jar up. Do not throw this away. Do not throw the liquid away in here. Next time you grill burgers, take some of this, or chicken too, especially chicken. Oh my, boy. Baste this with your chicken when you're grilling it. Unbelievable. If you are making some kind of chicken casserole, just pour just a little bit of this, because it's spicy. Unbelievable. This is the extra liquid, and I can it, okay? Matter of fact, some of my friends, when I make this stuff, when they come over for stuff, they'll see, because it's sitting on the counter for a few days, just to make sure everything's sealed before I put them away. They like this just as much as they like this. So I got friends that want this. So that stuff is really good. Take it, baste it on stuff you grill. Oh, it's good. One of the things I also did is I grilled some green beans. I put them in a container on the grill. It's like an open mesh metal thing on the grill. And I took some of that and I kind of sprinkled it on top a couple times, and yeah, that was good. So that's another alternative. Another thing don't forget about is, and this vegetable gets a bad rap. Most of the time, because people overcook it and it stinks. It is, but cabbage, okay? Good made cabbage is really good. When it's overcooked, it starts stinking. You get that sulfur smell, and I don't even like overcooked cabbage, you know, but don't forget red cabbage, okay? And what this is, red cabbage and apples. Okay, it's got some vinegar in it. It's got a little sugar in it. And when you're canning, you know, you got the Splenda, and you got the Equal, and you got the Stevia. Make sure you stick to the recipe. If it calls for sugar, use sugar. Now there's recipes that were developed for the other stuff, you can use them. But stick to the recipe. What if it calls for sugar, use sugar. Don't replace it with equal amounts, of this will equal the sugar. Not in canning. It will be different. So, but it's got tiny little bit of sugar, not too much. Vinegar, cut up red cabbage, and apples. Really, really good. You're talking a quick dinner. In your freezer, those ring sausages, those Pulaska kielbasas. Grab one of them, slice it up, throw a jar in this, put it in the oven for 30 minutes, and you got an awesome dinner. It's unbelievable. So, and that's another thing about canning is it's a quick dinner. So, and don't forget you can can soups, you can can chilies, you can can beans. I canned beans a couple months ago. It turned out great. It was pork and beans, just plain pork and beans, but it turned out great. So, canning is not rocket science. Canning, people think it's some mystical thing. People, I can't do it, I've never done it. Start on a small scale. And start by doing stuff you don't have to pressure cook. If you don't have a pressure cooker, one of the hardest things to can that a lot of people want to start with, like carrots or green beans, those are, I don't want to say hard's a bad word, none of it's hard, but you'll have more failure rates because of the air pockets you got to get out. And carrots and green beans, when you can have a lot of air pockets unless you get them all out. So those are a little harder. Start with something real easy. If you have a pressure canner, start with some leftover soup. Or chili you make. If you're going to make some soup or chili, make a big double batch. It's not that much more work. All the leftovers, because after you have it that day and you'll have it the next day, and then you're like, I don't want it anymore, But let's say you have a quart left, or you got a pint left. Put it in the can it. Now that kind of stuff you have to pressure cook. You can use your small pressure cooker, your everyday one. Pressure cook it, throw it in there, you're done. And you got an instant meal waiting for you. So don't forget to can your everyday leftovers too. But canning is not something mystical. Just start doing it. If you go to a lot of the community centers, a lot of the community centers have canning classes. If you put a note on Facebook saying, hey, I want to learn how to can, who my friend cans, because now's the season to ask. Who cans? I would love to come over to help and watch. You'll learn almost everything you need to do. The one thing with canning is just like when I make beer, sanitation is king. You have to make sure the top of the lids are clean. You have to make sure your jars are sterile. You have to make sure you're using new lids. Make sure everything is sterile. Okay, we're done talking about canning. We're going to talk about something else. We're just going to talk about everyday storage of foods. And you can do long-term in these too. You can get cans. This is a gallon size, and we got some of these, and they're also quart size. When me and my wife bought a bunch of these, and I'll show you why these are special compared to regular cans, is when we were buying them, she wanted to get a lot of gallons, and I'm like, I want gallons and quarts. I think the smaller amounts would be nice, this and that. She was right. Should have got almost all gallons. A couple quarts are nice, but we have way too many quarts. But these are a little different than normal cans. These have the ring, like a paint jar. They're just like a paint jar you can click on. But these are gold lined, okay? Not real gold, but they're called gold lined cans. Do a Google search for gold lined cans. You'll see them. There's a few different places that sell them, and they're not too expensive. You can see here, I just got rice in here now. These are made for food. You put it on, click it shut, you're good to go. Airtight, lasts a long time. If you want this to last a lot longer, put your item inside, put a couple O2 absorbers in of the bigger kind, depending on what you want to put in there. Put the lid on, seal it shut, you're good to go. So, and that will keep food for a long time. And you can even put dehydrated food in there. And that's what we're going to talk about next, is dehydrated food. This is where I was thinking a lot of the quarts would be handy, but gallons are almost just as useful and nice. A lot easier to get in and out and store. Yes, but dehydrated food is another great way of preserving food. Like here is some dehydrated onions. You have a lot of onions, and you can even do this with onions you buy in the store. Right at the point you buy, like if you go to Sam's or Costco and you get those big bags of onions, when you use them, and after a month or two, they just start to bolt a little bit and get a little soft, and you're like, I got a lot of onions, I got to use them all. Two things you can do: chop them all up. Sit down. What I do is I turn a game on, chop them all up. If the onions bother you to cut, you can do stuff to prevent that. You can get like painting masks and stuff like that, so you can think about that. It doesn't bother me that much. I cry a little bit and everything, but not too bad. Then you can put them on the dehydrator, dehydrate them. You're good to go. Now, you do not want to cut these this small when you're making them. You just don't want to do it. You really want them longer. Okay, I'll try to use my forehead that way. You want them longer because they always shrink. If you cut them small to begin with, they're going to turn into nothing. When in doubt, cut them bigger. Now, what I usually do is, after I peel the onion, I cut it in half, and I just cut each half in rings so they're like half circles. I dehydrate all them like that. When they're totally dehydrated, they crush. You can keep them longer, you can just and they just crush into small pieces. So you can do that. And again, don't slice those too thin. Dehydrating, the key is, and this is with everything dehydrating, green beans, is another great thing. Carrots are another great thing. Apples, making your own apple juice. And if you have a food processor, you can make applesauce. You can dehydrate that, and then you now have your own fruit leathers. But you can dehydrate almost everything. Is consistency and size, okay? You want to keep the same consistent cuts on the same tray. If you cut onions 2 different thicknesses, that's fine. Put them on 2 different trays so you can take the smaller ones off before the larger ones. So just consistent cuts when you're dehydrating. Dehydrating is a great way, if you don't want a canned way, to preserve a lot of foods. Most stuff will turn out okay. Now, dehydrated green bean, dehydrated pea will not be the same as a fresh or canned. It won't. I'm sorry, people say, I can't tell the difference. Yeah, you can. Freeze drying is a different story. Freeze drying, it's hard to do at home. Basically, freeze drying is dehydrating in a vacuum. I'm oversimplifying, but that's kind of what it is. Freeze drying is totally different. Freeze dried comes out really good, but dehydrated doesn't. I use my dehydrated stuff in soups, stews, and stuff like that. You're not eating like plain by itself, and it's great. So the next one I want to talk about, and this one is self-explanatory, and this is probably the easiest way to get into preserving food, is freezing. Almost everybody has a freezer. Remember I was saying when you're cutting all those onions up, we don't dehydrate onions hardly ever. Hardly ever. What we do is we slice them all up, cut them in strings, cut them in little pieces like you want, and you dice them, and those you cut to the size you want. Freeze them on a single layer. We're talking about freezing food. Freeze them on a single layer on a cookie sheet. After 4 to 10 hours, depending on your freezer and the size. Take them out and they're frozen solid. Take them all off. You can put them in a Ziploc baggie. Put them in the Ziploc baggie, you're ready to go with your onions. Anytime you need onions to add to anything, open your freezer up, open your freezer bag up, scoop some out, you're good to go. The reason you want to freeze them first is if you froze them and put them in the bag, you'd have one big clump of onion and you'd never get it. If you freeze them on a single layer first and then put them in the bag, you will have, they won't stick together, so they're real easy to use. Now, we also do the exact same thing to peppers, because if you grow peppers, most people in the United States, there's a limited season. You will have, depending on where you live, 2 to 6 months of eating peppers for most people in the U.S., unless you're in the extremities. Do the exact same thing with peppers. Peppers are a great additive to almost everything, you know, even bell peppers. I'm not talking jalapenos, you can do jalapenos too, but just bell peppers. They're a great addition to almost everything, okay? And if you have them there and they're already cut up and they're in the bag, easy to use, and you will start using them. So we put peppers in a lot of stuff, Anytime I make scrambled eggs, I put a little onion and a little pepper in every time because they're ready. They're not that hard for me. And if you need to saute them first to brown them, just put them in frozen. You don't have to thaw them first, and they'll thaw and then they'll cook. So peppers are another great way. And what I also do is when I freeze some is when I get the ones that I cut in strips, and then I cut peppers in strips, and then I put them in a bag, about like this. They're about that thick. And I keep them together, onions and the peppers. And that is my mix for fajitas. Instant fajita, pepper and onions. Take it out, ready to go. One thing I can advise, you can do that and you're good to go. If you start freezing a lot, and you can use it more than just this, is get yourself a good vacuum pack machine, a good vacuum. Food savers are great. Now, I don't know if you can see it. Nah, it's behind me. It's hard to see. I'm a big food saver vacuum pan, but there's two kinds. There's the upright, then there's the flat one that you open the whole tray up like this, then there's the upright one where you just stick them in. I don't like the upright. I have an upright now, and it is a pain to use. It doesn't work half the time. I've had more issues, and I talked to their support, and their support is useless. I mean, totally useless. One time they told me, well, just cut the bag, the end of the bag between 2 1/4 and 2.5 inches long, and you'll be good. I got to cut a bag within 1/4 inch of what I need? No, they've told me some other things that the uprights, some people have good success. I don't like them at all. The ones that are flat are generally a little more inexpensive too. If you open it up, you put the opening of the bag in the little pocket, you close it, you seal it. Done. Works every time. Matter of fact, we're having a new one because I have such a problem with this one, and every time I use it, I complained and moaned, and I was just unhappy. My wife finally said, go get another one. As a matter of fact, today we're getting another one delivered because we use it a lot. But get yourself a vacuum pack bag. You can have onions, and I opened one up. I realized, got put in the bottom of the freezer, that was 2 years old. Onions cut up, still perfect. Besides that, another thing you can do to save time is if you go to the store and you get yourself, it's on sale, some hamburgers on sale. Now, there's some places I don't buy hamburger. I do not buy hamburger at Walmart or Target for big stores, big chains, or Sam's, because that pink slime, you can Google hamburger pink slime, you know what I'm talking about. They will not say if they do or they do not. They will not admit if the pink slime is in their hamburger. They will not admit it is, and they won't admit it's not. So I got a feeling they don't know, and they get it from different places. So I don't get my hamburger there. I just don't want pink slime and, ugh. Costco says we do not have it, so Costco you can get it. Sprouts is a great place for hamburgers. Local butcher shops, if in the North Texas area in a town called Plano, there's a place called Ye Old Butcher Shop. Great place. Order it ahead of time and they wrap it up for you and you're good to go. Sprouts, I think I said, Central Markets, another great place, Whole Foods. You can find out who has it, but when you go on hamburgers on sale, I got sidetracked there. Hamburgers on sale. Okay, when hamburgers on sale, go get yourself 15, 20 pounds. It's on sale. If you got a vacuum pack and you're like, that's a lot. Take 5, 6 pounds, separate it in 1 pound packs, vacuum pack it, throw it in the freezer. And let's say you bought 15 pounds and you put 5 pounds away in 5 pound packages. Fry all 15 pounds up or 10 pounds up. Fry it all up. Drain it. Then I usually wait till the next day. Just easy, works out a little better. You can do it the same day though. Then you got 10 pounds of hamburger. Let's say you fried up and it's been sitting overnight, and you drained it, no grease on it. Take it out, separate it in 10 different vacuum pack bags. Vacuum pack it. You're good to go. Anytime you have a recipe that calls for fried hamburger, it's done. Take it out of the freezer, throw it in the microwave, or if you know the night before, put it in the fridge. You're good to go. If you need it immediately. Put it, on defrost in your microwave. You're good to go. If it's going in some big soups or stews or something like that, usually you can put it in frozen. If you're making hamburger helper or something like that, you can put it in frozen into the water, and if you add a little more water than the recipe calls for, and you put it in, and you cook the hamburger in the water before you add the pasta and all that stuff for a few minutes, it falls apart and you're good to go. So that's really good, but that I've had hamburger that's been frozen for a couple of years I've used, it's tasted fresh. So if you vacuum pack it, in vacuum pack you can vacuum pack everything. Freezing is a great way to start preserving. With the vacuum pack, you can do so much with that. Last couple things I want to talk about is the last one, and then I'm going to go over a couple books I've had that helped me out. This is one my wife found and we started doing last year, and we do it for one thing that we've done, and it works great. And not many people do this. Now, it's in the same line as biltong. Okay, if you guys know biltong, if you like beef jerky, you'll love biltong. What's a warning? If you start eating biltong, you're not going to want jerky. You're going to want biltong. So that's another thing. You just search for biltong. I'm not going to go into what it is, but it's mummifying food. You're basically taking all the moisture out and you're just mummifying it. These we started doing. They're not quite done. These are mummified green beans. And how we do this is kosher salt. Okay. Put them in not a big amount at once, a smaller amount. Coat them when they're fresh and keep them on the counter. Now you have to keep an eye on it. You got to drain the water off all the time. You can't have them sitting in water at all. So after a couple days, almost no water will come off, but then you keep adding a little kosher salt so they're all coated. And I'll get one here and I'll try to get a little closer and I'll hold it still so it focuses. There we go. You can see a little on there, and it's mummified. These are not done. You can see how thin that is, they're getting there. But they're still a little plain, a little soft. But after about a month doing that, they're just completely dried, just dried out. And simple enough. All we do, you don't want to put them in an airtight container because the moisture in the air will go back in there. Those paper bags you send your kids to lunch bags for school, those little square paper bags. We put them in that, curl it up, put it in our pantry. Done. That's all there is to it. Anytime, we've been using them. We used it a couple times. We haven't used them a lot, but soups a couple times. One time I put them in a little water for 20 minutes and then put them in a stir fry. It's fine. One thing I would recommend before you use them is rinse the salt off, or that will alter the salt content of your recipe. But there's no salt inside at all. So mummifying food is another thing you can do too. That's an easy way to get in, just kosher salt. You can use pickling salt too. Pickling salt you can use too, but generally kosher salt's a little cheaper than pickling salt, generally. But you can use that too. So that's that. Now, I'm going to talk about a couple books I have that's helped me out through the years. Besides, like I said, the biggest one, I can't say this enough, the Ball Blue Book. It's almost indispensable. If you want to start getting into dehydrating, this book right here, okay? Mary Bell's, Dehydrator. Nice thing about this one is besides telling how to dehydrate food and how to dehydrate it well, she gives recipes too, so, which is really nice. This is one I bought at Half Price Books. It is called Keeping the Harvest. Okay, and this goes over, canning, freezing, pickling, curing. Curing's kind of the same as mummifying. Cold storage, jams and jellies, and I didn't even go over jams and jellies you make when you get your stuff in. This goes over all of them. It's a great one. It tells you times you need to use and all of that. So that's another really good book to have. If you hunt or you buy a lot of meat on sale, sausage is a great way to keep your meat. This is a really good book. This is another one I got at a used bookstore for a couple bucks. And this one is from Victoria Wise. I'll get close up so you can see it. And I'll go back so you can see the cover. Lots of different kinds of sausage recipes. Lots and lots and lots and lots, and recipes to go with them, which is nice. If you hunt, if you get a lot of meat and pork or hamburger, venison on sale at once, sausage is a great way to keep it. Freeze it, you have it good to go, because you can do a lot of things with sausage. And there's a few of these books. This is one of these big books here. This one is Country Wisdom and Know-How. I bought this a few years ago. I think I bought it at Sam's or Costco or something. It's pretty thick, and it is detailed. It has everything you want to know to do about everything in the country, from cleaning deer to building a house. They have a lot of preserving in this book. They have a lot of ways, canning. And there's tons of illustrations to go with this that are hand-drawn illustrations. So that's another really good book too to have. Well, I want to cut this because I'm sure it's getting long. So don't forget, when you have it all, don't just give all your food away, or don't let it go to waste. Start preserving and keeping your harvest. It doesn't matter what you get into. I got into freezing long before I started canning. Long time before I started canning. Dehydrated before I started canning. So you don't have to just jump into canning right away. There's other ways to preserve food. Matter of fact, fruit and vegetables taste better frozen than they do canned. So that's my opinion. Some people say no, but most people say yeah too. So that's it. I hope you found this informative. Any questions, please leave them below. I appreciate everybody for subscribing. Thank you very much. If you found it useful and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. You can get all the new stuff coming out. If you have any questions, leave them below. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the kind words. If you want any more detailed on any of I talked about, please let me know, and we can go into more detail on that. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.